seasons. At the end of every 2-month season, the top 64 players on their constructed and limited ladders get invited to a $5,000 cash tournament that has at most 128 players, 64 from each ladder. One of the things I love about Hex is, as a control player, it allows you to make really informed decisions. So like, my opponent's playing Takahiro, which likely means they're playing some kind of mid-range, like kind of aggressive deck, and that lets me know that this hand with like Clash of Steel in it is going to be fantastic. If you're one of the newer Magic players that hasn't seen us play Hex before, Hex uses the digital design space to reduce variance TCGs have in a lot of really elegant ways. This Diamond Ice, for instance, has a mechanic called Fate Weave on it. So this resource lets me choose what I want to draw next turn. Do I want to draw another resource, or do I want to draw a non-resource? Because I don't have a 4th resource in my hand yet, I'm going to go ahead and guarantee that we draw a resource next turn, so we're guaranteed to have 4 resources in 4 turns. Actually, pretty much all the software development I do is for open source projects that I work on, so you can actually find pretty much like 99% of the code that I've written on GitHub if you want to see how good, bad, or otherwise my development is. I'm gonna wait on this ice because I don't know if I'm gonna need a resource or non-resource out of it just yet. Transmogrifade is very good in this matchup. So Transmogrifade, Hex has quick actions in it, so you can respond to the things that your opponent does in Hex. So on my opponent's turn, I'll be able to respond with this quick action. This transforms a troop into a random different artifact constant troop with cost -1. Which negates things like, my opponent's deck is full of troops that have death cry triggers, so they do things when they die. So if I'm transforming them, they're not technically dying. It's a good explanation of the Pokemon TCG type stuff. My opponent, each of us, you'll notice my opponent and I each have different portraits, and these aren't just cosmetic. We not only do they determine our starting life total, but they give us each a different special ability. So my opponent's special ability for 3 charges, or every time they've played 3 resources, they can sacrifice a troop to draw a card and gain 3 life. And my champion says for 7 charges, every time I played 7 resources, I get to generate an Oracle Song, which draws me some more cards. And as a simple man who just wants to draw a bunch more cards, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and stack another resource on top of my deck here, because I would like to hit, like, ideally 6 or 7 resource drops on curve in my control deck here. Correct, yeah, like the 2... J-Chick! With the 12-month resubscription. Thank you for the continued support. I really appreciate it. Welcome back. Yeah, it's like the 2 things I always have to like point out for X I feel obligated to, because like everyone copied Hearthstone, is that like 1, you can have interaction in this game, and 2, I can play things on my opponent's turn, and the second thing is like there's not a limited board size, right? Like I can like put as many troops into play as I want, or generate as many troops as I want in this game. So this lets my opponent take a card out of my hand, and it doesn't discard it, but it takes that card and it puts it into my opponent's deck. You took my Transmogrifade away. Sure. I'm actually going to... So my deck has two different thresholds in it, or colors, and this card costs 5 resources to play, but it requires that I've played 2 different diamond thresholds here. So I actually can't play this out, even when I play this 5th resource next turn, until I find a 2nd diamond. Same thing for this Clash of Steel here. Yeah, Glory is very powerful in general, and it's very good in this matchup. Glory is a 5/5 steadfast, so attacking doesn't cause it to exhaust. And when it comes into play, it voids every troop with defense 3 or less. And voiding a troop is kind of like exiling it. It means my opponent's death cries triggers won't happen. Diamond? Perfect. Let's go ahead and play that out. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and play the Eldurathan's Glory and like wipe my opponent's board out here. Like void all of those before they're able to sacrifice one to their champion power here. Might be a little bit aggressive use of Glory, but I also kind of want to like get it on the board and like start pressuring them. Modal card, probably going to choose the mode, lets them draw some extra cards. Yep. gonna put a non-resource on top of my deck with this one. It exiles things that have defense 3 or less, so it voids a very limited subset of things. So, I think I'm gonna attack here. The control decks are some of the more expensive in Hex. This deck runs about $160 to build outright, I believe. Runebind's kind of this really tricky, flexible card that I really love. It takes a card in play or on the chain and transforms it into what's called a Mysterious Rune. And Mysterious Rune basically keeps a card in stasis until I draw a resource. So I can do this to my opponent's cards, or I can do it to my own cards to re-trigger effects on it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to Runebind by Eldurathan's Glory, and then I'm going to play this Silver Talon Adjudicator. And what Silver Talon Adjudicator does is it says, when it comes into play, if my opponent has more cards in hand than me, I get to draw 2 cards. This is going to come into play, and then we drew a resource, which puts the Eldurathan's Glory back out. I guess that wasn't too cute. I like traded my thing for their thing. That's probably fine. My thing drew 2 cards. Yeah, and this is one of the more expensive decks in the game, right? And I keep a list of budget Hex decks here. There's a number of decks that are like sub $50 that are like very reasonable to play. Hex's competitive ladder is completely free to play on. So like once you own a deck, you could just play as much Hex constructed as you want without dumping any more money into the game, and earn booster packs to like play limited with the booster packs that you're earning. So my opponent played out Deadeye. That's when they sacrifice this, their champion power. This gives my troop -1/-1. And some of the things in Hex that you want to take note is, if something doesn't say until end of turn, like this -1/-1 modifier is a permanent penalty to my troop. I'm going to go ahead and play this and guarantee another non-resource on top of my deck here. I guess I could run the Runebind Silver Talon Gambit again here. Strangle. Do I want to Runebind this? I think I do. This protects it from my opponent's removal spell here. I'm just going to pass the turn here, because next turn I can hit my champion power, which will let me... I could draw 2 cards with this now, but if I hit a resource, I'd only be voiding 1 thing. Whereas, like, next turn, if they, like, place some more troops out here that this Glory could possibly void. And Ground Screeper's kind of annoying. There's a 4/5 with lethal. At the end of the turn, it triggers the death cries of one of their troops. Thankfully, they only have 1 troop, but it's not particularly good. Alright, so if I play this... I could go bird here, and then the second bird draws cards. I think I want to do that, actually. Did not hit a resource. Which actually okay. Like, that means these 2 get to double up on here. We have the new AA guidances. That's terrifying. When this dies, it summons 3 Blight Bushes, which are the things... And then my opponent could use this to trigger this. I guess I'm just going to block here, because I'm going to force this Glory to come into play next turn. Opponent's going to target this with the Ground Screeper, which gives them the get 3 guys. Play another Glory. Alright, I'm gonna hit this first. Draw 2 cards. If we get a resource, this will come back. Perfect. I need to find an answer to one of these 2, though. Otherwise, we're gonna be in a lot of trouble here. This card is so much worse than Guidance. So Guidance is a really elegant cantrip. It uses Fate Weave, and then it draws a card. So I play this out, and I get to choose whether or not I draw a resource or non-resource here, basically. Looking for, like, a Transmogrifade. Or a Runebind, even. This Guidance draws 2 cards now, because it was prophesied by my Thunderfield Seer. Still looking for a Transmog or a Runebind here. There's a Transmogrifade. We'll go ahead and Transmogrifade. Actually, I'm going to pass the turn here because I want my opponent to target this with the Grounds Creeper at their end of turn. So that way, like, if they play another Deathcry troop out here, they don't get value out of it. They might also just attack here, which would actually be kind of great for me. If they attack with this, yeah, I'm just going to double block here because I have this other Glory in my hand. You want a different show? So long as we don't get, like... Yeah, we didn't get Culmination to Blood. Which one do you want? Show me, Declan. And now, like, this Eldurathan's Glory gets to go ahead and come in here and void all their stuff. Then I get to play this Dark Heart out. And Dark Heart's a really powerful card. It's a 4/6 for 4 that says the start of each player's turn, they sacrifice a non-socketed card. So this is my only socketed card on the board, so I will have to sacrifice my Glory. They're done. You want the dinosaurs? Alright, so this matchup, how do I want to board? Confounding Ire is pretty good. This interrupts a Blood or Wild card, and their deck is all Blood or Wild cards. Yeah, I'm trying. I really haven't been happy with Into the Unknown, so I've mostly cut them from the 75. And I've got to Bring to Justice in the main, which is actually, like, Bring to Justice is pretty good in this matchup. Honestly, I wonder how long they're going to wait on Lasgars. I feel like they might wait until rotation happens to make a decision on Lasgars or whatever. So socketed cards, this is the only socketed card in my deck. I have another one here on the board. Socketed cards are cards that you can customize during deck building and during reserve. So I can change the modifications that this card has. So this card is always a 4/4, and it always makes someone sacrifice a non-socketed card every turn. But it has different modifications. The modifications I could put in this card change based on what colors or thresholds I have access to. Yeah, I agree with Bob. The expensive cards in this deck are going to be good regardless of what Lasgar's Vengeance does. What are the other cuts of this matchup? Virgo, what do you usually cut? Runebind's a little medium. Oh, you bring in the weaves too. Okay, that makes sense. Let's do this. It's just very similar to Redling's Apprentice, and I think Redling's is the better deck. I think Redling's is the more interesting deck. I don't know if it's strictly better. It's a little slow. I probably can't keep this. Sand's missing a diamond, but it's got a Sapphire Ice. I don't think that's true, Jin. Actually, I'd argue the Lasgar's Vengeance deck aren't even entry level because of how expensive Lasgar's Vengeance and like Matriarch of the Flame and Phoenix are. Like the Lasgar's Vengeance decks are like under $80 or $90, right? And like Lasgar's Vengeance does a really good job of pushing other decks out of the format that would otherwise be playable. Like there's a lot of decks that could be entry level decks that are just completely unplayable because they can't compete with Lasgar's Vengeance. Please no recorder. Oh, Declan. Arachnophobia. That's rude to make me discard 2 cards. Sure. That has to be worse than Cockatrice, right? I think it actually would be good for new players if Lasgar's didn't exist. I have a theory that if they banned Lasgar's, the constructed format would become cheaper to play dollar-wise. Because what Lasgar's has done, it's really kind of focused the metagame down. Yeah, Isakon actually went 2 and 3 against the decks that he He went 2 and 3 against Lasgar's decks in the events that he played. So I don't think that's a good argument. And I'm actually writing about icing on decks. Like, icing on decks seems reasonable, but like he did not have a good record. Yeah, like the Ardent decks would be much more playable. There's like a lot of things I feel like it would be more reasonable if Lasgar's didn't exist. I'm gonna go ahead and take this hit here. If they play Grounds Creeper, I'll probably Runebind this. Another Thought Collector. Okay. I would really like to draw a Glory. I just Fate Weaved a non-resource to the top of my deck. Tilt. Vastly more oppressive. They're not oppressive at all. So, see, cards like... My problem with cards like Lasgar's versus cards like Runebind is that cards like Runebind have a lot of play to them. Sure. Whereas cards like Lasgar's Vengeance, there isn't a lot of play and counterplay to them. Runebind is a super high skill card, whereas Lasgar's Vengeance is just like this really swingy card that like generally doesn't reward you for good or bad play and doesn't punish good or bad play. It just like runs people over. It's like there are a lot of really powerful cards in Hex, and the fact that there's so many powerful cards in Hex is one of the things that makes Hex enjoyable to play. But the cards that are higher power that like reward you for being a good player requires significant setup. It's not though. It doesn't require significant setup in the context of the Redlings deck. Like the Redlings deck, and it's not bad in the mid game because when you're playing Redlings, you can literally tick. I've ticked Lasgar's from 8 to a large negative number in a single turn in the Redlings deck. Just play like one of these out and pass the turn. Yeah, Runebind, this is probably my favorite card ever at any TCG. It's so fantastically powerful and flexible. Sure, when this dies, it gives it away, shoots -2/2. It doesn't require a large deck building cost. What would be different in your mono Ruby deck if you didn't have access to Lasgar's Vengeance, Bob? You just like 10-0'd with the deck, right? What would be functionally different in the mono Ruby deck if you didn't have access to Lasgar's Vengeance? How would you change your deck? I'd argue you probably wouldn't change your deck at all if Lasgar's Vengeance. You'd replace Lasgar's with something else. You wouldn't have Lasgar's in your deck anymore, so it'd be a different card. So I guess you could argue that that's something different, but like that's about it, really. No reason to attack because my opponent's gonna have to sacrifice these two things anyways. These dark cards, might as well leave them back in case they have a Speed Crusader. Welcome to folks coming over from the C stream. We're hanging out playing Hex Shards of Fate, fully digital TCG with a great competitive scene that uses a lot of digital designs to reduce variance in a nice way. No one told me my deck list was covering my health total though. Miscuous Succubus, sure. You could still have reasonable aggressive decks without Lasgar's in the format. No reason to attack because they could just block this one because it's going to die anyways. You want that? You want that? Trying to strangle that? Sure. Eldurathan's Glory. Wow. That's a pretty good setup on their part. Just go ahead and Runebind that. They'll lose it to the Dark Heart next turn. Go ahead and ascend here. So now, Psychic Ascension changes what my champion does. You'll see my portrait changed in the corner there. What Psychic Ascension does is it says every time I play an action, I generate a random troop. So basically, I'm playing a game of Momir Vig now, and my opponent is just like still trying to play normal Hex and keep up with my card advantage. The opponent's deck is kind of like this mid-range aggressive deck. Community member Isacon top 8'd the last 2 Hex 1Ks with it. Yeah, look at that. We got another scrub on this deck. I opened the chat to shit talk Matt, and he was already shit talking me. Yeah, it's a sacrifice theme mid-range deck is a good way to put it. It looks like we actually queued into Matt, who's playing the deck as well. I'm going to guarantee a 4th resource on top of my deck with this Fate Weave. Because again, control deck wants to make all of its shard drops. I'm gonna play extra slow. Wicked rude. The ladder reset yesterday. I'm gonna put a random non-actioner this morning, technically, I guess, right? Midnight PST at reset at. Matt better be sniping. I was gonna gate 3 with this, that's fine. Just gonna focus here. Ice, sure. This is our 5th resource. I'm gonna put a non-action on top for now, or non-resource on top for now. Well, this worked out well for us. Matt played out another threat here, and we have our Clash of Steel in our hand. So Clash of Steel makes each player pick one of their cards and then void the rest. The Lasgar's Vengeance deck make a reasonable subset of decks largely unplayable. I think standard right now is too many board wipes. Nah, I think it's fine. So, Lime Killer, something I would like to point out is that just because you did well with a deck on the ladder doesn't mean that it is competitive. It doesn't mean that it is necessarily playable or reasonable against the best decks in the format. And Matt's sacrificing his entire board here because he could have a Culmination in Blood in his hand. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass the turn here because we can actually get Culmination next turn, right? He got 5 poopers in his bin. I've got 1 too. So if he has Culmination, we actually could... We're gonna need to Runebind it. It's fine. Play this Dark card out, which is gonna make them sacrifice a non-socketed card. So because Runebind is socketed, they can't sacrifice that. They're gonna sacrifice their 5/5 Abomination. Like, every format has litmus tests in it. Like, these are the things you need to beat in order to be competitive in this format. And, like, Lasgar's Vengeance is one of the more oppressive litmus tests that I have experienced in a CCG, any trading card game recently. All right, so, oh, jeez. I was going to say Matt messed up here. What a fucking licker. So, if Matt didn't hit the resource there off his champion power, that line was pretty terrible. Because I was going to get to kill his thing. That's definitely how he can steal games. The Culmination Bloods are definitely a way to steal games. Yeah, I'll leave this back to block. We're at 15. Gross. I'm saying Novocaine is a good enough TCG player that regardless of what he's playing, he's probably going to ranch most of the people he's playing against. That's what I'm saying. That's the logic I am applying here. Players being good at playing decks that good players can do well with bad decks consistently. That's just a fact. That's not even like an opinion. Good players will do well with bad decks consistently or subpar decks. The attack with this, am I double blocking is a question. %75% a little extreme. I think even a lot of TCGs getting anything that's like... I think I'm supposed to double here. God, just super punished. Ugh. They lose their 7/7 here. I have a 5/5 to chump block with. Pretty good. It's pretty good. It's like mono gas off the top of his deck. Need like exactly Clash of Steel here. It's Shard into Clash plus other things would be okay. Because if I had a Shard, I'm glad a Shard is good because that's all we get. That card is so much worse than Guidance. Just dead. Alright, so we get to bring in Dread End and Confounding Ire and Weave, and we just cut the Thunderfield Seers. Is that what I did last time? Creating a Silver Talon Adjudicator. Hit me up. Yeah, Matt's draw was exceptionally good there, and like the turn he hit his champ power to try and re-culmination, like if he'd have missed there, he'd have lost this game by like a landslide. And then he asked for 4 running draw steps. We bricked off. It's fine. That's why, and again, one of the reasons why I like Hex is we have a focus on good gameplay, so we get to play best of 3 here. This is not some Hearthstone, Eternal, Elder Scrolls Legend, best of 1 bullshit. Just insert random CCG here that are all best of 1 ladders because they're annoying. It's fine. Clash of Steel's pretty good in this matchup. If we have a non-resource at the top of the deck, we've got plenty of opportunity to get some more resources here. Fine's okay. Another resource on top of my deck. Again, we probably just want to like ensure we hit our first 6 resources or so on time. Sure. Yep, not surprised to see Clash go away there. It's one of our better cards against Matt for sure. Lime Killer, I'm going to ask that you stop talking about this at this point. I'm going to say that I disagree with you on what is definitely a subjective matter, and as someone who has a lot of experience with TCGs, I think Lasgar's going away would be a good thing for Hex as a game. I agree that there are things you can do, but I think the number of things you can do against it are far outweighed by the number of things you can't do. So archetypes and decks are just completely unplayable because the card exists in the format. So yeah, you're entitled to your opinion just as much as everyone else, but I disagree with you. And I think a lot of people in chat disagree with you. So you just Runebind this and then play Darkheart out. I don't hate that. I can also just like play this to draw some cards. Yeah, I'm gonna Runebind this and then play the Darkheart out next turn, get some pressure going. Like, I think both of the Ruby decks that are leaning on Lasgard's Vengeance right now are doing powerful enough things in the abstract. That even if they lose Lasgard's Vengeance, they will still exist as tier 2 or possibly even tier 1 decks. Dude, calm down. You're entitled to your opinion, however wrong it may be. Dude. Alright, so what are you doing? Am I just like playing this Eldurathan's Glory? Probably. We're fine. We're actually fine. I'd argue we're ahead right now. We've got a champion power coming up here in the bank. You have a commander prompt, sure. Weave's a good draw. All right, Weave means that I am not going to use my Oracle Song this turn. But basically just like want to not get Culmination in Blood. We want to survive to Psychic Ascension. You want Cheerios? You want these? Which of these do you want? You want some fish? Okay, that's why you knocked it over. Okay, there's fish on the floor where you knocked over. So, start with your floor fish. And then we can go, here, Declan. Yeah, I buy that for $1, Bob. Just like a third Weave in the 75. He in the tank it if he wants to sack that? Sure. That's fine. I don't think we're strictly telegraphing a counter, because, like, there's definitely a reasonable... No, I'm not willing to trade this for the Blight Bark, I don't think. Like, I'll hold this back. Am I obligated to Weave this? Yeah, I'm gonna counter this and stack a resource on top of my deck. Or I can just ascend next turn. That would give him a lot. The Blight Bark. It's gonna go really wide, Bob. I'm not gonna hit my champion power just yet because I want to save that in case the culminations be. Yeah, like, I guess I'm at 25, but like, sure, culmination. And like, this is fine, right? Like, I have a Lanupaw site in the bank right now. We're just like, firmly ahead currently. by a pretty significant margin. Matt just said we did. You're not wrong, Matthew. So Clash of Steel says we each pick one thing and then sacrifice the rest. Sorceress Sculpting makes me another one of these Dorkos. Deck. That's fine. There's still a game 3 here. Matthew's gonna need to be on the play for the 3rd game. I'm gonna Runebind this. I don't think I want to change anything here. Oh, yeah, you're right. It would have, wouldn't it? Good call. Good call. Yep. And it's decent. Needs a couple more resources, but hopefully we hit an ice or a cantrip. I haven't had hair since I started having children. There are 2 $1,000 Hex Cash tournaments every single weekend. Constructed tournament on Saturday and limited tournament on Sunday. Literally every single weekend. Matt just posting the casual, like, typical ladder salt in chat. Silver players always have it. Oh no! I was like, okay, the Psychic Ascension's not a big deal. We have the sight to, like, pull ahead here, but now we don't have a sight to pull ahead here. And now he gets to sequence knowing that we have this weave, which is a little annoying. This only reverts another target card. It only reverts other cards. I don't really care about that, right? That's just gonna, like, get cleared up by this Eldurathan's glory down the line. Famous last words. Okay, so here's a question. What could he play out? Yeah, I'm actually just going to play this and guarantee a resource on top of my deck here. Hopefully we don't get Culmination next turn. One. Okay, yeah, so we shouldn't be getting Culmination this turn. Runebind would be annoying. Never punished. Get those dorks out of there. Still only one troop in crypts. Skew a succubi, sure. I want a resource there because I want to work up towards my champion power. One of the best ways you can stay ahead in this matchup is by, their best catch-up tool is Culmination in Blood. So by having a champion power kind of in the bank, not used, if you can, like, even if you don't have counters, you can just, like, make sure that your champion power is going to gas you back up post, So, like, here, I'm going to hit enough resources to use my champion power here, but, like, I have enough going on right now that, like, there's no reason for me to draw 2 more cards. GG. Got two counters in my hand here. You always, whenever you're ahead in a matchup like this, you always want to think about, well, like, what's my opponent's, like, best line to, like, claw their way back into this game? In this particular case, their best line is Culmination in Blood with me not having follow-up afterwards, so... Just gonna use the weave to get my Fate Weave on here. So I have Confounding Ire that's a little bit less expensive. See? Out of here. Classic Silver Scrub, say GG, and then keep playing. Ooh, look at us climbing our way out of the pit. Up into gold. Ooh, got that sweet, sweet deck sleeve. God, this art. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. That's certainly something. Jake's gonna be home from school in like 10 to 15 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and give someone else a host here. Thank you everyone for watching. I do appreciate it. I'm going to get Jake off the bus and make the kids some lunch, and then eat myself, and then I'm gonna be back with some more Hex probably in about, I don't know, 2 hours or so. So I will be back. I want to do some more Hex. I want to climb the ladder a little bit more today. So thank you everyone for watching, and I'll be back later. Catch you all around.